And
Yeah,
I've tried
what
like
the?
so many. Bear with me. Like I can't stand it. I've never been able to understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. It's a very boring, extremely terrible book. But I was talking to my sister-in-law, and she's like, I feel the same way. But you need to go try The Hobbit, because apparently it's written a lot. It's written a lot more on
A children's
a more
level. You're right.
elementary children's level kind of thing. So it's an
Pearls
easier
before
read.
swine, Thomas. Just ignore it. Pearls before swine.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It's just I've never been able to figure that one out. And so,
Well,
I
like
mean,
Paige is kind of on the same thing, and then like I came home, and then I was
Ew.
like, I didn't get, I didn't get everything. She's like, I didn't kind of get everything, and so then we watched like the Silmarillion explained, and like a bunch of lore on the Lord of the Rings, and now we're just neck deep in it. Anyways, welcome to the PARAcast, your number fun shooting show on the internet. Joining me tonight, due to unforeseen sanctions, he's going to have to pay his match fees in Bitcoin. It's Robert Wyatt.
stupid ATF.
How can you freeze a man's bank account? How? How is that possible? It shouldn't
I
be.
call that the U.S. government.
He's like, what's the peso dollar conversion for practice score? And when he's off duty, you can find him at Jabba's palace. It's Jared Stepp.
You know what?
Don't listen
It
to
pays.
Don't listen to the last episode.
It
And-
pays money. I'm not allowed to talk this podcast, so I'll be quiet.
And he has more used 40 cal pistols than aim surplus. It's Charlie Perez.
This is absolutely true. Yeah, I have a fleet of 40 cal limited guns just crying in my safe.
What have you thought about selling these? Because you shot like you're a mainstay in limited. Like I started shooting USPSA in 2014. You were already a mainstay in limited then. Like what? How long did you shoot limited with 40 caliber pistols?
Dude, forever. Like probably the start of '09 to 21. Dude, long time.
Yeah.
Long time. And it's not just the funny thing is it's like I'm not a guy that can take like a clapped out gun and sell it because I feel bad. So it's not like I have not only like the legit good limited guns, but I also have like a fleet of like broken horses that are just like super clapped out guns that I'm like, well, I don't know what to do with this thing, but
bad.
He's like, don't pull on the safety. That's supposed to come out like that. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is some guys prefer the looser guns.
I've heard that about you.
Mhm.
So, like, what are we talking about? Like 15, 20 of them? 10?
Not 50, probably 8 to 10.
Were you?
8 to 10. And then there's a big parts pile of like experimental slides and barrels and frames and grips and yeah. The Frankenstein like dojo in Charlie's house. Dude, it's just endless.
So
That's the thing, dude. I mean, like you hang on to the gun, you commit yourself to like I'm going to shoot this division, and then you start to commit yourself to the gun, and then you start playing with the gun iterations, and you start collecting slides and gun parts, and then you have like these boxes, and people are like, "Why do you have all that many?" It's like I don't know, because somebody offered me a good
Mind
deal
your
and
own
I bought it.
business.
Well, this isn't to mention the fleet of 40 caliber magazines that Charlie probably has. Back when an STI magazine wasn't just you just couldn't just buy an STI magazine. You had to tune them. So the amount of like $150 magazines Charlie has is probably
Yeah, I was able to unload quite a few of them in Colorado because Colorado has some magazine challenges. So I have a small herd of 40 cal magazines.
yeah. Yeah, I guess the new 2011 kids like they missed the age. Like they're expensive now. Like there's no doubt that there's a lot of guns that are $6,000-$7,000, and that there's like a $2,000 range to get into, and so it's expensive. But they don't have an idea of like what expensive was. Is like, well, you had your like $2,000, $3,000 front end price for the 40 caliber, non-optics adjustable sight kind of gun. But then like all the ancillary stuff that came along with that gun, shooting it in 40 cal, ammunition, magazines, and all that stuff, like that was a big deal.
Yeah, and the thing I'm noticing is shooting 9mm 2011s or double stack 1911s or whatever you want to call them. Everybody's got their different flavor of it. But in the 40 cal days, those things were rough. Like they were hard on equipment. Like you would break frames and slides, and you would legit wear stuff out because of that. It's the power of that caliber. And in 9, like I look at the same. I'm shooting my 9 LO guns these days, and I'm like, when's it gonna start to wear? Like they just have such an easier life that I think like back in my 40 cal limited days, like a legit built good gun would be about 100,000 round gun. And then I think in these 9 guns, dude, they're probably 200,000-300,000 round guns.
Yeah.
It's pretty much infinite.
Yeah, like there's very few people that are going to put 100 grand on a gun, much less 200,000 or 300,000.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same thing that they saw with the service pistols when they went to them. Like all of a sudden they had those guys who were what were they? The guys who like Glock was kind of one of these where they saw like the Smith and Wesson cartridge at like SHOT Show off the Smith and Wesson booth, and then one of the guys like took it back to Glock, and they're like, oh, here's the dimensions of the new caliber. They put out the Glock before Smith and Wesson even puts out their own pistol and that caliber, and they're like, it's like now there's some pressure issues. We're having some issues, and then like guns like SIG and HK, they like completely overbuilt the gun for 40 cal, and so I would imagine that you'd probably know better. I would imagine that when they're building those guns off of a 40 caliber spec or a 40 caliber frame, and then they have the barrel and everything like that, like those guns are very overbuilt, and especially like some of those barrels, those barrels are thick. There's thick barrels on a bunch of those guns.
Absolutely. Like the factory guns, that's probably no big deal, right? The slides have enough meat and frames and that kind of stuff on them, but when you're in the Charlie Den of Frankenstein and you got to lighten up the slides and do a bunch of wacky stuff, like it just like slide and crack, and that's what happens when you take 4 or 5 ounces out of a slide.
Yeah.
Right. But the price of racing, I guess. Plus, if I crack a slide, then I can fit another slide and do all the craziness again. Right. It's just like feeding the beast of fiddling.
Yeah, that beast is sometimes helps you and sometimes doesn't. Like, the whole idea of like it's the whole idea of like lightning slides. I think like everyone kind of went to that for a second, and then like they would run into the issues. I know, nowadays like people are trying to get faster return on the dot or whatever like that, but a lot of the guns can seem to do that, and I don't see a whole lot of like what we saw with the super cut up Glocks and the skeletonized 2011s. Like we don't really see that a whole lot anymore. And Robert had skeletonized or has seen skeletonized Shadow 2s, and the performance on those, the longevity, so to speak, doesn't exactly hold
It's
up.
fun. It's actually funny you mention that because my buddy had one of the skeletonized Shadow 2 slides back, and it was an OG from when it was no, this is a newer one. He actually had somebody cut it, and he showed it to me, and he's like, oh, look what I did, it looks really cool. And I'm like, yeah, the problem is the Shadow 2 slides don't take well to being cut up. And he's like, well, I've seen it done. I was like, yeah, we did it back in the early days of carry optics when the weight limit is what it was.
You
and
can
everybody
do it.
who did it, yeah, you can do it, but it's going to hurt you badly. And
It
he's
just
like,
might
I'll be
blow
good.
up.
And sure enough, last week, I get a call from him, and he sends me this picture, and he's like, is this bad? And I'm like, not if you ever want to shoot it again.
It's good for
Because
hanging it up on the wall.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to say I told you so, but I told you so because it's a bad idea. And it was. I mean, everybody was trying to make weight in make that Shadow 2 make weight in carry optics. They cut the slide to pieces, and it took the structural integrity out of the slide, and inevitably the thing broke. There was only one company that ever seemed to have much success. That was what Fire for Effect, and they're gone. I mean, they're long since gone out of the market. And so it's like,
That's
yeah, I mean, some of these guns. I mean, the engineers aren't stupid. I mean, they have an idea of how things should run, and generally, generally they're going to get it correct. But like Charlie says, the price to race the game, I guess.
well, and that's I guess we see a little bit less innovation in that ever since we went to like 60 ounces in a freaking pistol to be competitive. But in that, what was it, the 2014, 2015 kind of era, there was all sorts of people doing what we would call mildly retarded things to pistols to get them out there, and then
Oh, it hasn't changed.
it hasn't changed, but at least it's gotten more expensive and classier. Where I don't have to be tempted by any of it.
Well, what's changed, and Charlie can actually speak to this. Kenny Terry told me this is like the amount of like just what would you call it? Just like ability of a gunsmith to put together a 40 Smith and Wesson, 2011 40 Smith and Wesson. You had to be really on top of your game. And because it beat the guns up harder, the pressures were harder. Everything was just a harder fit. But then when you go to 9mm, where it's like such a low pressure round, it doesn't really do anything.
It's easy peasy.
Yeah, Springfield can clap together a Prodigy and say, Bob's your uncle, here you go.
Almost. They can almost put together.
I know,
Prodigy.
almost, but but that's
Well,
kind of my point, right?
They slap together. Well, now whether they actually are accurate and
Poor Springfield.
Springfield should advertise the Prodigy as an 80%. Yeah, like it's an 80%, and like here's their friends at
that is-
EGW, they can get you the rest of the way.
That's
Oh my
exactly
God.
correct.
that is awesome. That is awesome.
Like there's the funny thing about the thing I find so funny about Springfield is that people like they have a decent, like the echelons, like they work, they're safe, they have a great optic system, they have like great traction, they have like decent triggers, and they're like for like a duty style CO lightweight entry level pistol, they'll ship it to you for 5 magazines for like $550. Like they have this thing there.
But they don't ship the Springfield label with it.
That's the problem. Like if HS Products just said like, hey, like we don't like, if they just put out on Instagram like, listen, we don't like the Springfield logo on the side of our pistol as much as you guys don't like it, but it's a decent pistol, just give it a shot.
We don't want this shit either.
But the thing that people are running to is on the Prodigy, and like the funny thing is, I think that kind of trend was like people like, we're gonna get a Prodigy and we're gonna do the best, and then we're gonna compete with it. And then like the number of Prodigies you actually see in matches is like slowly just like ticking back this way because people
Now
are
it's all Kimbers.
well, good on Kimber. Like they produce a. I sat there in Cabela's. I held the 2K. What's their middle tier? They have like they have like the DS Warrior, and then they have like a kind of a middle tier, and then they have like the top end or whatever. But their middle tier gun, their full size 5-inch gun, I handled that, and I was just like, I don't like 2011s. This is
Which
nice.
one had the best mouthfeel?
I don't trust the Cabela's folks on mouthfeel because they're just.
The middle tier requires the silver Mexi teeth instead of the gold teeth.
It comes with a grill.
Gotta bling it out. But like, they're nice pistols. They have great triggers. The fit and finish seems to be decent. Like, they actually have a decent set of adjustable sights on the guns. Like, that's kind of the thing which is neat with them was like, the Springfield Army Prodigy comes out with like that AOS system, and you're like, okay, or whatever. Like the Kimber is like, oh, this is a gun that you could shoot with iron sights if you had to, because we understand like that's still sort of a thing. And it's so like there's a little bit hint of quality on there. And like I know that not Kimber, but Springfield, they went with those who made their magazines. Was it Duramag? Who was it?
Duramag.
And like you designed a magazine, and most people don't design a magazine to work in their pistol. And they designed a great magazine. They just should have like done it the other way around, where they made a pistol to work with their good magazine. But like everyone's going to the Kimber, and I'm like, good. I'm happy. I'm always happy when Kimber actually is kind of what it was like I remember it, like a good mid-tier entry-level kind of pistol.
The Clackamas Kimbers from back in the day.
Oh, those are the best. Those are the best. Kimber SIS pistol and all that jazz. Those are cool guns. So, anyways, let's talk what we've... Go ahead, Charlie.
I got a question here. So, and this is a panel question. With all of these optic mount guns, it doesn't have to be an LO gun or a CO gun, just any of them. Why is there this endless push to have backup iron sights on a red dotted gun when in every single match that I've been in where somebody's dot takes a dump and they have backup irons on them, they just can't seem to use them? So it's like, why? Why? Like, I don't get it.
This is a legitimate question where people all of a sudden just like have the dot go out and then they instantaneously just like kind of like give up, or I can't use it, or like they didn't set up the gun in the first place where the irons were like actually in a usable state. They just have them as, oh, well, I've checked the box, I got backup irons. Like, you know, my most catastrophic failure with a dot is it leaving the Canic. You know, and you know the Canic went away, but at least I had the excuses that
got deported.
It got deported, and the Canic, at least I had the excuse of like, well, the way that it's mounted on the Canic, I can't have a backup iron sight. If it leaves, it leaves, and so like it left. But like I've had like Glocks with forward irons and stuff like that on them, but yeah, it is. I think the optics are good enough, and some of the milling's good enough now that they're probably not needed. But yeah, there's a lot of people who have them on and don't have any idea.
There's always, I think there's always going to be that like the sight leaves the party, like it breaks off the slide and it's gone. Like that happens. But more like I see more like my battery went out or my button screwed up, turned off. So the dot is still on the slide, but the dot is not on. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And that the thing that kind of blows my mind is it's like, do people's index of the gun just go stage left? Like I don't know. I've not intentionally, I've practiced with a red dot that had no glass in it because the glass fell out or flew out in the middle of a practice session. And I was like, screw it, I'll just keep shooting this thing. Just using the window as my aiming device, so to say, and just use my index. And I was like shocked at how good I could actually generate hits.
Well, I think that's kind of the thing you're saying, though, is like most people rarely, if ever, will actually turn the dot all the way off and see what they can actually get away with just their index. And like everybody's like, oh yeah, I can point at something at like 2 yards away and I can pull the trigger really fast. But I mean, you played this game long enough and you practice, you'd be surprised what you can get away with at 12 yards, 15 yards, maybe even 20 yards.
Well, there's
the Taryn Butler phenomena.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people.
Precious.
If you there's a Lord of the Rings kind of. If there's that thing with people where they have the dot, right? So like they have the dot's on, and like most of us, if you just told us, hey, grip the gun, index and shoot, and let's see how far we could get away with it, and then like all of us would do it, would be like, okay, like wow, that's amazing. Look how much we can do with no sights. The problem is when people's dots go off, they decide to destroy their entire index because they are looking for the dot that is no longer there in the middle of the stage. So you start with a good index, and then they're like, oh my gosh, there's no dot. And then they start turning and looking for the dot because they didn't pick up the dot on the draw or whatever, or grab the index on the draw. And so then when they start shooting, they have no idea if they're, north, south, east, or west. And, like we talked about. Like,
the amount of new... Sorry.
Go ahead, Robert.
I was say the amount of new shooters I see that are still closing an eye, even while shooting with a dot, is still disturbingly high. They think that they have to actually aim looking at that dot, and when you try and tell them that no, this is a target focus system, in their brain they're like okay, and then they proceed to keep doing what they've always done. And I don't know if this is just something that we've got to work our way through, and eventually, generationally, we'll get away from it. But I've still to this day never stopped seeing brand new shooters. At least one in every new shooter match that I do every month is still trying to actually aim the dot instead of putting the gun and the dot on the target. It's I don't know. It's probably just generational.
You just slap a piece of tape on the front of it and pollute it, right?
Yeah. I've started kind of doing that just to like force them to articulate what that's like, and yeah, it's the correct thing to do, and yet you still see people do it. And so, like, say you don't really need these backup iron sights. You're absolutely correct. Like, I have a front sight on my Shadow 2 because it holds the bushing in. Otherwise, it's worthless. There's no functional value. Like, I had the slides cut, take off the backup sight, the rear sights anyway, and but my what was it that STI or not STI the gun that you and I both got,
The
Jared.
HD, the Staccato HD.
the
Yeah,
staccato.
the Staccato HD that comes with backup iron sights that actually are usable.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Well,
don't know what the right answer is.
I just think honestly, there's a lot of times where competition bleeds into the tactical world, and then there's sometimes the tactical world bleeds into the competition world. And I think that's what the backup iron sights is. I think a lot of that comes from the quote unquote tactical world where backup iron sights are a big thing and they really like having backup iron sights. And a lot of the old cops and the old mill guys, that's how they kind of learned actually how to shoot a red dot, was just line up the iron sights and the dot will be there. And I think you have these old guard guys who that's how they learned or that's how they did it. And so that's how they teach. And they're still teaching it that way, even though it's 2026. And do you need backup iron sights? Probably not. But it really just depends on the gun. It depends on what the purpose of the gun is. And if it's set up correctly, you shouldn't notice the backup iron sights and it shouldn't be a problem. And you should only see them when they're needed. But if it's set up incorrectly, you're like, no, you don't want to include your primary aiming optic. Your primary aiming device is your primary. Your backups are supposed to be backups. They're supposed to be there if needed in emergency. And I just, yeah, it's just one of those things where you're going to still have goobers show up at matches with their Safari Land and their Cry and all their fancy equipment, even though they've never done anything, because they're just playing dress up and having fun, and that's just what they're doing. And that's part of having the fun, is having the clone correct gun, that whatever their favorite guy on Instagram, whatever the cool guy is from GBRS or God knows what group now, and they're just trying to replicate these cool guys from the internet. That's all it is.
So the thing about that is, at a match, I always say that half of my entry fee goes to my ability to participate and shoot the stages. The other half of my entry fee goes to watching the entertainment of the rest of the squad.
Mhm.
So it's part of, like, if that element was gone, if there wasn't some craziness, then it's be like,
Well,
I'm getting jit.
yeah,
There's the social part that's always fun.
the funny thing about like the entry fee for watching the squad is like, what a good run out of PCC we got over the past 10 years. Like, if there's any entertainment that, like, we are all like, this is a handgun sport, how dare you let them shoot rifles? And the amount of magazines, extensions, 50 round extensions we got blowing up and shooting bullets all over the floor, guns detonating out of battery, sketchy looking 180s and all that jazz. Like thank goodness for PCC. Like, the most jank stuff we've seen over the years, it used to be the open guys that would have kind of jank stuff that we would see, but the open guys, when they have problems, it's scary. Like, when open guys are getting squirrely and, like, you're just like, was that a double? Like, did that guy just shoot 2 into the berm while he was retreating? And then it's like, it's aimed fire. It's like, all gay. Guys running around with 1 pound triggers that shouldn't be.
Bert.
But I would say on the iron sight thing is like, we took suppressor height sights that were primary optics, and then we made them bigger, and we're like, now they're going to be backup irons. But there's an actual generation now, especially like with the Staccato HT, that has backup sights that are backup sights and only backup sights, and they're very small, and unless you actually look for them in the window, do you actually see them.
I was at this class yesterday, and I was introduced to somebody who was like a firearms expert. That was the lead. They're a firearms expert.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's fine. We have different worlds, you know. Everybody has
Where'd
their
you
lane.
take the class at?
Do you know Next Shot Precision down in Orem?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's Jim Cannon's. He's the guy who does all the NRL and the long range precision matches and stuff like
Right.
that. But it was really interesting because he's like it was his first aid class, and they were showing us kind of the gel that shows, you know, like this is the temporary wound cavity. Here's how much the expansion is, so that if you're packing wounds, there's a lot that you'd have to deal with. But he makes the comment, and he says he's like, yeah, but in my personal concealed carry gun, I alternate bullets. So he pulls out this magazine, and he's like, he's like, what is this? Oh, like, oh, that's an HST. Yeah, I got this HST, but then behind that, I've got this Simex, and then behind that, I've got the other HST. So it kind of goes stagger step down. And I'm just sitting here, and I'm like, from my perspective, I'm like, if one was better, why would you stagger them? I've heard this thing like in shotguns where it's like the first one's a bird shot,
No.
the second one's
Dutch
but it's
loading.
like,
yeah.
No, that's when you
if I
just
need
yell
to
from the
shoot
back.
somebody-
Back.
Well, it was very early in the class, and he was grading this, so I kind of wanted to keep it like on the professional level for a little bit. But I was just left. It was just so weird to me
Hey.
because I've never understood. Like, I'm against the whole light for caliber, high speed bullets that comes out every 10 years or so of, like, you know, the next great wonder 9mm, and then eventually just goes away because everybody realizes it doesn't do anything really effective. But at the same time, it's like, I can't. I still struggle. It's like, why would you ever say this is good, but this is better, but I'm going to put the good one behind it? Why would you stagger that out in the world?
Robert, you don't
It's like-
understand that he actually comes with the label firearm expert, which means he understands more than every single like FBI or police department. And like everybody else, it's like, you know what? A gold dot G2 at 147 grain. Like, it's just like, yeah, but I kind of know more, so I'm going to put this back behind it. And it's just, you know, it's just
Well,
like,
but that was the thing. It's like the people in the class are like, well, what bullets should we use for concealed carry? And I'm like, you should use whatever your local law enforcement uses. And the guy's like, nah. Here's what I got, fam.
this is the only way to.
It always makes me sad though when you're at some sort of thing, whether it's a tactical quote unquote class or a USPSA match or whatever it is, and then you hear somebody being like, "Oh yeah, I'm a firearms expert in this and this and this and this and this and this," and every single word that come out of their mouth was wrong, and you're just like, "Oh."
And there's that part of your life where you're just like, oh, I will listen to them. And then there's that other part of your life where you're like, oh, I'm going to argue with them. And then there's this part of your life where you just go, interesting.
I'm going to talk
And
about
then-
this on a show.
And then you're going to walk
Well, it's
away
like what
from
Charlie-
and watch them.
It's like what Charlie
Entertainment.
was saying. It's entertainment. You go to Gunny's, you go to Bass Pro Shop, you go down to any of these goddamn gun stores, and you listen to half the gun salesmen be like, This here put a man's leg straight through the wall of China." And you're like, what the fuck does that even mean?
I would
What?
like Robert sent me this video on Instagram. I was at the gym, and Robert sends me this video on Instagram talking about this guy he's talking about a USP 45 tactical, and he's talking about that it has an extended barrel for a silencer.
Oh,
but he's
right.
like,
I
yeah,
saw.
like, but you can't shoot it that much because all the weight at the end, because this is a tilting barrel. So after a few rounds, that barrel is going to snap off. And so you just want to put it on, take your shots with it, and then take it off so it doesn't break. And you know what? As opposed to, like, you know, when people are selling absolutely terrible guns that you would never Like, if you had to sell it yourself to make rent, you wouldn't sell to anybody. And then hearing them like, absolutely, this is the greatest gun ever. And it's like, I'd rather take the guy who's talking about, hey, don't leave that suppressor on. That barrel will snap off after like a little bit, or it'll shoot his leg through the Great Wall of China. Like, I miss those good old days. I miss when people made you feel slightly shameful for not buying a single stack 45 and buying like a Glock 19. Those days,
I
want back.
I knew I was in
Of course
bad
you
company when they referred to USPSA as the USPCA, and I'm like, this is clearly the wrong place. I'm sorry.
Well, at least you learned how to pack a wound.
Yeah, I got that going for me, so huzzah for that, I suppose.
Robert learned how to fill a hole with his fingers.
I learned it in high school, but it was reinforced.
There was weirdly less blood this time.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, Robert, what'd you do this week?
I last Monday I took this Stop the Bleed class that the Armory was putting on because I wanted to, and I thought it was really good. But they did that class, fantastic class. If you guys go out and shoot, you're shooting on the regular, I highly recommend it. I think it's a great class just for people, right? I mean, it's going to tell you the basic principles, what's necessary, and the class that I took Monday, the instructor Easton with Iron Rescue, he did a great job, and like they had little trainer dummy kind of things where you could just sit there and you could just practice actually packing the wound and making sure, and they told you everything how to do it. Fantastic class. And it's like $20-$30. It's well worth your time. It's right up there with the CPR classes that you take. But there was another class you can get like the certification for it. So you've heard of like TCCC, like the Tactical Combat Casualty Care, I think is what it's called. But that's really for like law enforcement, military, like people in a war zone-y kind of place. But like from an active bystander, like just the average stuff you're going to see in real life, there's a certification, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care, which is basically, it's just a civilian version. And the whole point of it is if you go take the Stop the Bleed class, you've learned everything you generally need to know. But the thing that when you go and you actually take this other class, it teaches you kind of the methodology and how if you come upon a scene, like if there's something happens and you come upon the scene, it actually kind of like gives you a methodical kind of step-by-step approach on how to assess the situation, assess the patient, and first check for bleeding, second airway, respiration, circulation, and then hemorrhage. It all kind of comes out to the letters MARCH, March. And so it actually teaches you how to go through each one of those steps. And I really like that. I thought that was fantastic. I mean, I've had situations in life where I've had to like provide first aid to people, and I've done fine. I've done fine, and I'm happy for that. But at the same time, I've always kind of wondered, like, how do people actually approach this thing from a methodological standpoint to do it well? And so I went down. I took that yesterday, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. They actually had a really cool trainer where it was all about packing a wound. Like when it comes to basically cuts and bleeds and stuff like that, pressure is the number one thing. You putting pressure on the wound that's everything. I mean, first, foremost, and almost everything, getting pressure on it, because pressure is what stops bleeding, right? And so, but it was cool because they actually had this like, so they had a trainer. It was like a puncture wound, but they had it hooked up so that it would actually like put blood, like fake blood, into the wound. And so what you had to do was you'd have like a not quick clock, but you'd have your gauzes, and they'd start the flow on this thing, and you shove your hand down into the wound trying to find this thing. But the cool bit about it was like there's bones and stuff inside of it. And so you're sitting there like fishing around. All of a sudden blood starts spurting out and you're like, ah.
And Robert,
it's just like Black Hawk Down.
Robert puts his mouth over it like that lady with the Mentos and the Coca-Cola. He's like, ah.
This'll solve it. But no, it was
Kool-Aid.
It was really really cool. But the fake blood stuff they use, it'll actually coagulate. And so like everybody in the class except for the last two people went through and they had their turn at actually stopping a bleed. And then the last two guys, they actually gave him the hemostatic agent because they're like, once this happens, we really can't use this anymore for the next person. And I was impressed because that stuff works on moisture. And as soon as that thing hits the blood, you can see it's already starting to act. But yeah, it was a great class. I'm glad I went down and took that, and so I'd highly recommend it.
That's awesome.
I got a question, Robert.
Send it.
Why does USPSA not promote combining like RO rules certification stuff along with this safety stuff? Like I always found that odd throughout all the years. It's like we invest this time in making people good officiants, but then it's like, oh, you'll just magically figure out what to do when somebody has a bullet hole in them. I don't know.
It's a damn good question. It's a dang good question, and honestly, I don't know the answer. Probably because
Well,
they don't care.
I would say what other sport has every sport has officials, and every sport has the rules keepers or whatever you want to call it, the guys in the black and the white. You always have officials in sports, and I don't know of any other sport where the officials are also the medics. So
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean,
it
they're
would be more efficient to have the officials also be medics, and that would be very convenient.
I wonder
And I
if
could
some.
definitely see Charlie's point, but
yeah.
I think that's putting too much when you look at the majority of the certified USPSA ROs. Um,
Let's be honest, the majority of the certified USPSA ROs are statistically higher to have a heart attack than the people who are actually shooting the guns.
But that's an
yeah,
emergency as well, right?
Absolutely.
Like we got to be prepared to deal with like somebody having those kind of problems. It's not like I
The
think that too many clubs focus on somebody actually shooting themselves or shooting somebody else or a mega cut or something like that versus like the
heat stroke.
chances of somebody having a heat stroke or heart attack or
Mhm.
like mega dehydration, like those are way more likely to happen.
if somebody, I mean, and we've all seen this, if somebody gets a cut on a range, almost everybody in that squad has a tourniquet, and almost nobody has band-aids.
Mm-hmm.
We train and we think about the most extreme but unlikely events while failing to understand the things that statistically happen a lot. The heat strokes, the exhaustion, the band-aids and the boo-boos. Nobody ever thinks about that sort of stuff. So
I
like even in my little first aid kit that I have with me, the majority of that, I mean, yes, I have a tourniquet, I have a chest seal, but those are two things that are statistically I'm never going to use. But um, if I go through a summer and I haven't replaced the band-aids and things like that at least 3 times, then I haven't been shooting because I'm always going through those things for people. Stuff that we use all the time.
I would imagine the same reason that USPSA has a bunch of other stuff is probably from crack legal advice. Like, it's kind of like, listen, if we promote, first aid, that's a tacit admission that people get shot at our activities. So as your counsel, I would recommend that no one's ever getting shot everywhere, and so that you guys don't need to provide it because So on a club level, I think I think waiting for USPSA to officially do anything is probably
I think
not the
waiting for
best.
I think
Wait,
if you're
what?
waiting for USPSA as an organization to do anything, you're going to be waiting a long time. The best thing you can ever do in life is to, on a club level, decide this is important to you and then go do it. And if USPSA happens to look at it and says, hey, this is a good idea, then 15 years from now, when they decide to implement it, awesome. But until then, you and your club should, if you care about your safety, take care of that yourself because that's where all the real initiative's going to come from.
Yeah, we in my prior club since I've moved, but my prior club we would have trauma training for all of our board members at least once a year, and we would also turn over our stage first aid kits, trauma kits every year. So like we we'd always keep them fresh enough to the point where we could legitimately give them away as prizes at the start of the match, just random drawing, like, oh, you win this trauma kit, and then we would replace them every year. So it would make it much easier for us to ensure that that safety equipment is fresh and new and inventoried and all that kind of stuff on an annual basis. But we'd also, own our own destiny in training people on how to use that stuff. But I just think it's funny how
I like that idea.
it's just weird how we have a sanctioning body with a game that we play with deadly weapons, and there's never a mention of like, hey, you guys might want to do this.
Yeah.
As their counsel, you brought the deadly weapon, sir. You brought it to our match.
You brought the SIG P320, not us.
Not us. We didn't do it.
Well, I mean, like nationals, race gun nationals, they had a guy who shot himself, and it wasn't USPSA that solved it. It was the members, and it was the local club, and the local club subs. I mean, they've had people get shot on their range, and they have taken steps on their own, just the same as what you've done, Charlie, where they've got training for their members. So, and they put first aid kits out on all the bays so that if something ever happens, I mean, I like that. I'm happy that kind of thing happens.
Yep, absolutely. Jared?
I went and shot Slipsa on Friday and actually did pretty well. I was happy with that. I shot my new abortion of a staccato, and so I got second place in open with that. I think I got sixth overall, so I was happy, especially because, dude, Slips is everybody over there is getting fucking cracked out. Like,
how much did Alistair crush the field?
I think he was
8%,
100%, and like number 2 was Rory with like 91. 92.
Was that on his second run or his first run?
That was actually his first run.
Right on.
I don't have it up, but no, Alistair's an absolute beast.
He's a beast.
And he's just absolutely shitting on everybody at our club, and it's amazing because you have these other guys. You got a lot of really solid shooters who are performing at an incredibly high level, and then Alistair just shows up and is just like, and it's just like, God damn. Okay, all right. So I was happy. I actually shot well because the previous week I did really poorly and I was mad, and so this last match I actually did what I think I should have done, and so I was happy about that. And then I taught a shooting class yesterday, which was fun. Did a private
What are you teaching at?
A private class at the Armory, actually. So this was my first class at the Armory, and I don't know, like in some ways it's really nice, and in some ways it's not.
How so?
The tactical bay back there, it's just small, and so normally when I teach a class, I want to do 10 people, so I can charge a lower amount, and then you can't even fit 10 people on a line back there, in my opinion. So I could only do 8 students, which eats into the profit a lot. And it was really expensive too. Like, I think I talked to you guys about it, about how the first offer, it was for 5 hours, and they wanted like, I think it was like $750 or something for 5 hours to reserve the range. And I was like, fuck you, no.
And what does it come with? What does that come with? Is it like catered meals?
Hand jobs for
Can of SpaghettiOs.
I'm not even gonna lie. I probably could go to Slipsa and go buy everyone hand jobs afterwards, and it'd be cheaper than that.
I don't know, man. Slips has gotten expensive.
Well, but Slips has just gotten weird because Slips has been really frustrating, and every time you talk to a different board member, they give you a different thing. And one guy's saying, "Oh no, this is how much if you're gonna host a class here, it costs $10 to rent a wall, $5 to rent a barrel, $2 per target stand, and this and that and this and that." And you're just like, nah, This is really nickel and diming. Okay. I thought that was the point of me giving you $20 a person, was $10 goes to the state and $10 goes to the club to cover this. And then that was one of the reasons why I stopped teaching at Slipsa, is because every single time I talked to somebody who's different, and then I could never even get them. I'd have to beg them to send me an invoice. I had to bother them to send me an invoice for the cop match for like a month or two, and that was to pay them like $7,000. And I'm like, guys, if you won't send me a goddamn invoice, I'm gonna buy something with this. I'll buy me an Atlas right now with this $7,000.
Just donate
But
the Atlas
like,
back.
this, yeah, this is what's gonna happen. Like, what are we doing here? And so Slips has been getting frustrating. And so I tried out the Armory, and the Armory was nice, but it's just really expensive, and it's small, and you can't shoot to the left or to the right, which is one of the things that I wanted to do. And it was really, I don't know, it's just one of those things where there's pros and cons for different venues, and I'm just trying to figure out what to do. So, yeah, it's life.
Well, at least
the important question here is, did you use my stuff?
No.
Oh, good. Okay, I'm glad you went then.
Actually, yes, I did.
You son of a bitch.
They gave me a
walls.
couple walls. They gave me a couple walls, and I told everyone to just shoot the fuck out of them at the end of it. And
I will cut you, you motherfucker.
At the end of the class, we just all shot the walls and shot the brand new ground and shot the ceiling and shot the walls, and then we left.
Oh man, we're doing. Lance he's got it's a rifle match, PCSL rifle match that he wants to do there, and I keep telling myself it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. The biggest challenge with like rifle matches is it brings the Timmies out to the yard, right? I mean, like holy crap, like the Timmies show up. And on one hand, I'm like, I'm okay. I'm happy to have people come out and shoot, but some of those people, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of the new shooters, we still have some squirrely Dan new shooters, but some of those Timmies,
ooh, there's
they
one spot
scare
left.
me. You should sign up.
The larger the caliber and the lighter the trigger when people are running up and down a range with their finger on the trigger, those make me wish not to stay. Like I'll stay around at somebody running around with a 9mm with their finger on the trigger, but when you start talking about like 38 Super Comp and stuff that's actually loud in 5.56s, and then you see the muzzle go above the berm and their finger's still kind of like what's going on there? It kind of looks like this from the side, but you can't tell. Like I would rather not. I don't want to put USPSA's lack of a stop the bleed class into effect.
This past week it was funny because at the match somebody was shooting a major gun, and when the open major guns always have their catastrophic malfunction, and he's sitting there and he's fucking with it and he's trying to figure it out and slowly everybody behind just slowly starts hiding
backing up.
Everybody just starts hiding behind somebody else, and everyone's like, okay, I don't know what's happening, we're just gonna.
That's when I'm like, save me, Dirk.
Everyone's just hiding behind a bigger person, and then slowly, oh, there it is. Now he's shooting again. Now he's okay. And everybody kind of gets out.
I will always enjoy. Well, let's say I'm happy for open, because I will never hear. We used to get it in limited, and maybe we'll get it in limited optics, but the guns aren't as squirrely and as dangerous in limited optics. Where it was, I didn't have my finger on the trigger. I dropped the slide, and then the gun went off. And it's just like, you son of a bitch, you brought a dangerous gun to the range. That's your better excuse. My finger wasn't in the trigger. It's just so dangerous.
Sponsored by Sigsar.
I brought it in an unsafe firing condition where it just drops the slide and doubles, but like, it wasn't me. It is just like,
it's a feature.
Yeah, that's.
Well, then not only are you DQ'd, but your gun is now DQ'd, and that's not allowed on this range no more.
Slam, fire, slam, fire.
Who was it who fell? Who was it that fell and then shot a bullet straight up range and then was like, my finger was outside the trigger, but I did put this trigger kit in the gun, and that's what did it. And it's just like, that's worse. That's worse.
What was that? Raider. Brandon Raider? No.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think it was Raider.
It's worse.
That's a long.
That was a while ago.
Yeah. No,
that was on a range. That was on a range where the berms like backed up to each other as well.
Yep. Yep. Hopefully, when he shot it into the other bay, it scored. It was a scoring hit on a target. Like at least, like if you're gonna have a 38 Super Comp whiz between your legs, at least have it knock down a popper. You know what I'm saying? You're just like, oh, hey, Like, not on me.
Trick shot.
Hey, no. And if you have a good time, you're like, no reshoots. There's nothing in the rule book that covers this. No reshoots. No reshoots. That's a direct scoring hit, and it doesn't say that I had to fire it. It's like, that's him. It wasn't him. It was his gun. You should go talk
there's
to him
nothing in
about
the
it.
rule that says assistance from friends is outlawed. I mean, come on.
Like, if someone's willing to take a shot up range and get DQ'd for it, But anyways, Charlie, did you do anything this week?
So the last time I was on the podcast, I've moved from Colorado to Idaho. So we're in the process of unpacking, finding the new spot for all the stuff that we had original spots for in our old house, and now it's a new spot. So it's pretty cool, actually, and it brings excitement to my life as a shooter to go to a new place and see the shooting community is pretty much the same as it was back in Colorado. Everybody's super welcoming, lots of cool matches, lots of stuff to do. The one thing that I really like about how it goes down here from a matches perspective is if you're not there, all the matches do the setup the morning of, and then obviously tear down at the end of the match.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not there to set up or tear down, dude, you're like disowned. So there's like 0 consumer shooters, which I'm like, so that's awesome.
Nice. That's going to prevent a whole lot of burnout.
Yeah, I keep trying to get like some of the ranges to try and like adopt that as an idea because they're like, we just don't have time, and it's like, you know what? There's a bunch of clubs just to the north of us. They seem to be really successful in the way they do this, and they have got good culture. It works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you well, and that's a little bit harder. I mean, Slips is one because it's a Friday Saturday, twice a month kind of match. So that whole setting up and taking down. But there is a part of that where it's just like we have this ability just to blacklist you on practice score. Just kind of like practice score 3. If this comes out, it just has your name. It's kind of like a free trial.
You realize
software
you're
program.
trying to get Eugene to do anything productive for the shooting community.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying Colorado has a better chance of like becoming pro gun than that happening.
Well, I'm just saying I would just like a version that randomly places you somewhere in the shooting order, and it's just like, guess what? If you actually tear down or set back up, we'll give you the rest of the score, and just enough. Just enough where you're just like, it's just a little bit of tantalizingness. You're just like, oh man, this thing will let me do X, Y, or Z for free. This is great. And then you hit like the print or export or whatever, and then it's like Microsoft Outlook is like, sorry about that, champ. You don't have the paid version. Sorry, you didn't have the work. You need to put the sweat equity into this bad boy. So what's the scene like, Charlie? What's the competitive limited optics scene, carry optics scene up there?
What club are you at? Are you at like Parma area or?
No, I'm in northern Idaho in the Coeur d'Alene area. So there's a few different clubs, like one down in Lewiston, one in Coeur d'Alene, one in Spokane, that kind of stuff. So there's it really like one of the main reasons why we wanted to move up here to northern Idaho is it is very Colorado-esque in its weather pattern, what it looks like, that kind of stuff. So it's not like a huge difference in that, but there's way less people. We lived in Parker, which was just south of Denver in Colorado, and when we moved there back in 2000, the population of Parker was 20,000 people. And when we left, it was like 75,000 people.
Holy
so
jeez.
It had grown so much. And of course, like any little towns, like they're not adding a crap ton of infrastructure. It's just more houses, more people, more. So there's just so much traffic and lines to do everything. I'm like, I'm so done with this. And
what Charlie's saying is he found something called equity when the population increases by threefold, and he's like, you know what sounds good? Getting out of here with a stack full of money. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's buy some more.
One of the other
guns.
things, like my wife and I are at the age of like now we're kind of transitioning into taking care of parents, right? So one of our parents probably going to end up moving in with us. And our house in Parker was just too small to move in a parent. And when we're looking at like we're going to need a bigger house, we're like, are we going to find a different place in Colorado, or are we going to start looking around? And I actually did a class in Coeur d'Alene. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And when I go to nice places that are not dirt pits in the middle of nowhere, I bring my wife and she like adventures around the place to figure out like what's cool in the town. So I brought her to that class that I did in Coeur d'Alene. And after the first day, she picks me up at the range and she's like, "We're moving here." And I'm like, "Wait, what?
Nice.
Like, what's it all about here?"
They got a Jack of the
We-
Box. We're fucking coming here.
Yeah. So we've come back to Coeur d'Alene area 5 different times for different times of the year. Like, what is it really like in the middle of winter? What is it like in the middle of summer and fall and that kind of stuff? And what's it like in the middle of the week when it's rush hour and that kind of stuff? So we did a tremendous amount of recon, and we looked at different places around the country to where we want to move. But this just ended up being that's where we want to be. So that's why we
Nice.
came up here.
Yep.
That and there's more gun freedom up here, so that's another good thing.
Yeah, it got pretty rough in Colorado over the past 8 years or so.
Yeah, and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
So,
But they got more weed.
well,
That's
but
your
do they?
thing.
Like,
It takes
like one of the weird things about the weed situation in Colorado is like the whole pitch on us doing the weed stuff was to pay, like, oh, we'll get the tax
Right.
revenue to fund schools and this and that, and they had like several school districts suing the state because they were not getting any of that tax money. And it's like, wait, what?
As a former Californian, I can attest that the gas tax, the lotto, Indian casinos, like none of the money actually never goes anywhere that it's supposed to go. The bill just runs up exponentially. They just sit there and go like, "Oh, we have way more revenue. Let's spend 8 times as much," and then nothing ever happens. So it's great. There's nothing that should warm your heart more than paying 50 cents per gallon on a gasoline tax and to realize like it doesn't do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. It's all great.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
What did they do to us?
But what does go somewhere with you is a Dominate Defense belt. Head on over to Dominate Defense or American Operator Gear. Use promo code PARA10. Save 10% off the best competition belt and concealment belt in the industry. Mach 1 speed belt, ratcheting belt system, inner belt that doesn't bunch up. Check them out. It's an Idaho brand. Check out American Operator Gear and Dominate Defense. Also, check out W74 guide rods. If your gun's just not heavy enough, if you need to tune it, and by tuning it, we just mean adding weight till you're at the limit, check them out. Use promo code PARA10. Save 10% off your guide rods, your tungsten batteries, and all that jazz for your shooting needs. And Rune Tactical, get a +1 follower, springs, and all that jazz for your pistol. So take that 23 to 24, that 22 to finally 23, and if you have a 21-round mag to 22, get a different pistol because it's not very competitive, but you can make it slightly more competitive at Rune Tactical. Use promo code PARA10. Save 10% off your order. Also, Telegram, messaging service, messaging app. Search PARAcast. If we have questions, well, you have questions, and you ask them to us, and we'll do our best to answer them. I have a couple for Charlie right off the bat. So, Charlie, you've had the Path to Focused effort right there.
Yeah.
When did you print that? When did you write that?
I released it, I believe, in 2018.
Yeah. And so I was just thumbing through it. Is there anything in there that as 2026 Charlie Perez would he add or subtract, or any thoughts that you've learned since that time?
I think that the piece, like, there's an element that is, I'm going to reboot that book. I'm going to put more effort into like what is the difference between shooting on the move versus blending positions, because I think those are two different skills completely. But I think that's that is the time frame when I wrote that thing. I was obviously still shooting limited division iron sights pretty exclusively. By then I had a GM card and open and that kind of stuff, kind of like a open tourist at that time frame, and the sites, the red dot sites around that time frame, what I would say, like there's still quite a few guys running like the old Timors, the slide, the serendipity ones or whatnot, versus the smaller form factor sites that we use today. I think that like some of the red dot stuff in there, I think is still holds water. I think the cool thing that we have as like a shooting community is we have way less fiddle faddling needed to get a legit competition ready gun. Like way better
Yeah.
products in the market these days, right? And we also have way more robust red dot sights on the market these days. Like there's a wide range of great products that anybody can go buy. I think the only thing that we as an industry probably should figure out or settle on is the mounting pattern situation. Yeah, I don't know why we just don't pick a mounting pattern and be like, this is just what it is, guys. Like, just build your crap around this pattern, and then everybody can try everybody else's sites out and that kind of thing. Like, I don't know.
Never.
But I think from my book perspective, it's still a solid piece of content. It's viable. I still like it's a prerequisite for the students that attend my class. I have them read the book, and I've seen really good traction on solid questions that come up during classes or before classes or after classes that are founded in the content in that book. So I really like that.
Yeah, it's like I have 5 or 6 shooting manuals. This is still probably one of the best ones that's ever been put out there and printed, and it's like it's great. It's 140 pages long. Like it's a fantastic manual for shooting, and it's been one like there's nothing that it doesn't cover that. Like you can take the context of the iron sight shooting and the stuff and apply it to red dot, but there's almost nothing in that book that it's going to leave you with questions on like, what do I do in this? What do I do with that? Like it's a very, very comprehensive book.
The thing that makes it so good is it's so structured in the way that like this is why you do the thing you do. That's that's what I always liked about it.
Yep.
It isn't like go do the thing and figure it out. Like here's the reason why this is actually applicable, and you lose that in some other things.
I would.
Yeah. I've always been a why guy. Yeah.
Target focus versus front sight focus gives a nice good explanation in there. This is always great stuff. And okay, so we talked a little bit about optics patterns and stuff like this. Since the last time we've talked, we've had literally we were in the middle of kind of like a 2011 explosion. You are pretty much a career 2011 double stack 1911 shooter. Like we've actually had a bunch of movement in 9mm platforms. Last time we talked, I think you were shooting an Atlas. Like what do you like? What don't you like? And like, what's the optics that you're putting on them now for LO?
So these days I'm running a Atlas. So it's a Charlie upper with an Atlas lower. So I've had to build my own uppers on those guns for varied reasons. One of it, I like to fiddle faddle with stuff. And so I basically turned a couple of my iron sight limited guns into limited optics guns. And that's one of the reasons why I had to put these uppers on there. And it was just easier for me to build my own uppers and give me the flexibility and how to build them however I wanted. And I started out in LO with shooting my Artemis in 40 cal, 40 minor. And, that was basically limiting me to 20 rounds in a mag, 21 here, there kind of thing.
Yeah.
And shooting 40 minor, I actually had to run like 150 power factor ammo to make the felt recoil feel like a 124 or like a normal kind of 9mm round. Because I found that if I made 40 like 180 grain 40 cal bullets pushed at like 130 power factor, they were just too soft. They're just like distractingly soft.
Like shooting 22s.
The other, well, not that soft, but I mean it was there was times where I'd be like rage blasting an array, and I'm like, was that a squib? Like, I'm not sure. Like, that kind of situation. But so I took that my 40 cal Artemis, and I initially built a 5-inch um, standard, not a sight blunt gun, like a 5-inch bull barrel limited optics gun. That,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that in my Artemis had a steel grip, long dust cover frame, and that thing was just too heavy for 9. So I ended up taking quite a bit of weight out of the slide. And I also went from a bull barrel to a bushing barrel. And in the middle of this, that fiddle party, I started another fiddle party and built a 4.6-inch upper, kind of like the same config as an Atlas Athena. So a bull barrel 4.6-inch setup. It was basically just like a tri-top slide with some panel cuts for, racking the slide and whatnot. And that thing always seemed like it was pretty balanced, meaning like, oh, this is the appropriate slide weight and mass. So it's returning. It's not super bouncy when it snaps back forward. Or that's what I would run into on my 5-inch setup, is that when the slide would snap back forward, it'd get this muzzle bounce kind of thing. And I had to do a bunch of this fiddle faddling to get that muzzle bounce out. So I really learned that eventually I got the 5-inch to feel and track the same way as the 4.6. But this is back to like we were talking about fiddle faddling stuff here and there. Like I put a bunch, like probably 5 times the amount of gunsmithing effort into this 5-inch gun versus a much more basic config and build of this 4.6. So like if that 5-inch gun ever takes a dump, I'm just going to turn it into a 4.6.
What
That makes sense?
is the wanting to make the 5-inch gun, like make a 5-inch gun work? Is that just a holdover from shooting 5-inch guns from 40 cal?
Absolutely. Like when I was shooting 40 cal guns, I did all kinds of craziness. Like I shot from commander length guns all the way up to 6-inch limited guns and everywhere in between. And I would always end up back at a 5-inch barrel length from how much the gun likes to tip up. And this is probably too far into the weeds on a fiddle story, but when I was shooting limited, I liked having the opportunity because in 40 cal, you're always you're using pretty fast burning powders, and you could end up with case head separations, that kind of situation if you're really like running 170 power factor, that kind of stuff. But if you would run a 6-inch barrel, your ammo could be loaded with less powder, so it's less chance of a case head separation. But 6-inch guns feel pretty flippy, and for a long I was like, why does it feel flippy? From a perspective of, is it the length of the slide or is it just the length of the barrel or what? And I found that the ejecta, like it being like a rocket coming out of the end of the barrel, that is what changes that flippy feel. Because I built a 5-inch bull barrel gun, but it was a bull barrel that was a custom bull barrel that Barstow made. It was a 6-inch bull barrel, but it was the correct diameter back to the 5-inch point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we built that to be like the lockup at a 5-inch into the slide, and then we laid down the end, that last inch, to make it like a pencil size, like a normal bushing style barrel. So there wasn't a tremendous, there's not the extra weight out the front, right? We just have the 6 inches of barrel. And that config, even though technically there's maybe a quarter ounce, half an ounce different, addition of that extra pencil barrel, the flippiness of it was identical to a legit 6-inch gun. So I found that if we cut that inch off and now it's a 5-inch gun, now it feels like a 5-inch gun. And then we went and we cut an inch back. So we basically hogged out the inside of the barrel an inch all the way back to make it a 4.
Like an
like a mega crown.
Yeah.
Yes, a mega crown, like an inch deep. And then it actually felt like a commander styles gun. So I think that felt recoil, how the gun tracks, that kind of feeling. The big piece of it is the length of the barrel versus how much eject is coming out of that, like leverage against your hand situation, right?
Yeah.
So I think that in this
Science.
limited optics scenario, it's kind of the same thing. For whatever reason, that 4.6, 4.5 length is the magical length for how much powder is in a 9 miter round, at least for me.
And so have you besides your own guns, have you tested any of the stuff else on the market and or like in classes or whatever like that, and found something that the off the shelf option that you would recommend to people? Charlie's tastes are too refined. That's what that was.
Well, so to be 100% honest, one of my problems is I got big hands, and you guys have all shot with me at some point. You see my beaver tail; it's humongous because I need a huge beaver tail to hold down my hand chub, right? So I really can't. If I shoot somebody else's gun, I got to like roll my hand chub up and get this weird grip, so it doesn't slide bite me on a 2011.
Right.
So I really haven't had too much of an opportunity to just shoot a bunch of other different guns because it's kind of a pain in the butt for me to shoot different guns and not have it chop me up.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But what I have seen is like it's kind of a weird situation where people get these budget 2011s and they're budget for a reason, right? I don't want to say cut corners. It's just like how they manufacture things need to be a certain way to bring a certain price point. But then they expect, well, if I just throw a different grip on it, it's magically now going to be an Infinity or an Atlas or some other, an EMG gun or whatnot. And I think the reality is like a lot of those guns that are in that $1,000 to $1,500 range, those things are parts bin guns, meaning they're like the magicalness of CNC machining. They can make parts pretty close, but they're not the same as a hand fit gun, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So, and like the Prodigy, you guys were talking about that before. Like I've seen Prodigies that are, for whatever reason, the frame and barrel fit is really good. And then the one right next to it, it's a train wreck. Right.
It's
Like
just rolling the dice.
it is. Like if I was going to go buy one of those things, like, and I actually did this one time. I went to one of our local gun stores in Colorado, and that's when the Prodigy first came. And I asked them, like, how many of these things you got in the back? And they're like, we got 5 of them. I'm like, well, bring them all over. And I started to feel all the fit of the barrel, the fit of the hood, all that. Exactly. It's like, nope, 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 nope. No. Like, but I've seen other guys that somehow it was the Monday gun or the Tuesday magical gun or whatever, that like this stuff is fit properly. But there's like, and honestly, for the type of shooting we do in USPSA stuff, which is like we're squirting bullets at rage blast speeds while running around like a spider monkey at like 7-yard targets, like on average. Like, do you need super like mechanical accurate guns? No, you don't.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but maybe I've been to too many major matches where there was that mini popper at 50 yards that just crushed my soul because my barrel fit was off just a little bit. Right?
You don't need it for USPSA, but my gosh, will it drive you ever loving nuts if you have ammunition and a gun that doesn't print well? Like it'll just eat you alive on sight, because eventually it rears its ugly head and pops up and just kind of bites you. But the one thing like you get like
you sight it in.
Yeah.
Like, that's always been my problem. Like how the hell do you sight it in? Like you got to start shooting 20, 30 round groups and then just average it. Like, yikes.
Yeah. Well, and the other part too is like on one of the Prodigy guns, where like you could get like, well, what was it like back in the day with 1911s? Is like you got a good barrel, you got a good slide, and you got a good frame, and like that's all you can ask for under heaven. And then like you're gonna have to do something else to it and try to get it to work out, And then it's just like you get like these Prodigies, and they may have a good barrel and slide fit and frame. And then it's just like, well, what else do they have? And then like, what else in the barrel didn't you see? Like, it's like, oh, it fits nice, It's kind of like, and then you run like a bore scope down. And it's like, well, good. It's like the bore was bouncing as it was cutting the rifling. Like that's great. So it's like there's no answer to it, and it seems like the minimum price point is about $2,400 for like the Kimber or a staccato, or if you got a cop friend, a staccato at a cheaper discount, something like that.
So the thing that I think some people are not understanding about these less expensive 2011 style guns is that to get to that price point, these manufacturers have to outsource the build of the subparts to like the cheapest bidder, right? And like a recent example that I ran into, one of my buddies is like, man, I have to load this ammo specifically for this gun because it doesn't like this ammo works in all my other guns but this one. So I looked at that barrel, and it's a 9mm barrel on a 1911 of an inexpensive brand, and the bore was cut straight. The chamber was. So like it wasn't cut with a 9mm reamer, right?
Yeah.
But that's a scenario where that manufacturer is going to some machine shop and like, oh yeah, make us barrels. And they're just straight cutting those chambers all day long. Brown, 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 brown. Right?
Welcome. You know what? You could learn how to shoot a Glock and be absolutely fine, but you don't know. You guys don't want to do that. You guys don't want to do that. There's no
Why? I got a CZ.
There are cheaper options that come with less of these hassles, but the 2011 is the
I'm just
tinkerer's
saying,
gun.
pay the money to CZ Custom. They'll give you an AccuShadow 2, run the hell out of it, have a great time. Huzzah.
Along the lines of the guns, like the brands of guns, level of guns and whatnot, I always thought as a match director, like hosting level 2 matches, those kind of things, it's difficult to get sponsors to engage and show their value. And it would be much easier if we had a participation process that was allowed me or allowed the match director to have sponsor specific things. Like a really good example would be we have a slide mounted optics division with no comp, 150mm mags. But then for categories, you'd have Glock category, Smith & Wesson category, SIG category, 2011 category. Like,
yeah,
that way it'd be much easier to say, hey, SIG, do you want to sponsor your guns that want to blow up an AD all over the place? Or do you want, right? It'd be much easier to, and in that way, the people that are like, well, I don't have a 2011, I can't compete. There's a category that you can participate in. You're shooting against all the other Glock guys. Yeah.
Well, that's like Dave Blanton called it the Constructors Cup or something like that. I think is what he called it, where you have that, right? You have like everybody who wants to shoot in this division to compete for this, you're going to shoot this Glock or this CZ or whatever. And you create this own little fun game within the game.
Yeah.
But so the other thing I want to ask the team here is, I think from a when I don't have X gun, it is no longer like the gun. If you're somebody that's shooting USPSA like 10,000, 15,000 rounds a year, the cost of the gun does not matter at this point.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Right? The ammunition is what's costing all the money, right?
Yeah.
The gas to drive into the brain. Yeah, exactly. Like, so I really never get like, yeah, I get it, dude. Like, you don't want to go out and spend 15 grand on an Infinity, right? But there's so many 2011s on the market that are a reasonable price. Like, there's no reason why people should be whining about not having a 2011.
The answer to that is actually really easy. When I come home with a $2,500 invoice compared to the $200 invoice for the ammo, it's easier to like sneak the $200 times $200 times 24 past the wife than it is that one big hit of the $2,500. But you're right. I mean, everything you're saying is correct. It is the cheapest thing in what we do. There's no doubt about that. But $200 at a pop is cheaper to the wife.
I think that you just created a new business model, bud. You could sell guns and then have payment plans that have that like $200 every week or something.
Hell yes.
It's like, instead of Rent-A-Center, you got Rent-A-Gat.
Yeah, the Renegade. The problem was with the Renegade Center and shooters nowadays. The younger kids would be like, I don't owe you money. I sold that 2 weeks ago to him. Like, he owes you money now. Like, that's what it
You
would
gotta
be.
go repo your gun.
I don't want to be the repo guy for the gun though.
Yeah.
If anything, Robert, just make fake receipts for people so they can give those to their wives and be happy.
Yeah, and then
My
this thing's
problem
like,
is my wife is an enabler, and she just
Mine
says,
too.
"Oh yeah, you should do it." I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, I've been looking at these Hayes custom guns. They look so nice, and it's one of the last custom 2011s I haven't gotten to play with, and I've only heard good things about them. She's like, well, you should buy one. And I'm like, but they're like 5, 6, 7, 8 grand. And she's just like, okay, fucking go make it and buy it. And I'm like,
Yeah, I get that.
That's
I get that too, and then I tell Paige I can't shoot anything worth more than $700. It hurts my hands. Like, it's beyond me. These things aren't meant for people like me. Anyways, Patreon questions, and we'll get out of here.
Let's see. Let's start with these ones. How do I transition faster?
testosterone.
Like what?
Yes.
Yeah. Or just get some yard
Some-
snips and just shunk.
Yikes!
That's a hard transition, or not hard anymore.
Shears or a drill? Which one do you need?
Working on speeding up transitions, Charlie.
Okay. So target transitions. If we want to transition the gun faster, the cheat code is calling your shots, meaning you're observing your sights, whatever they are, iron sights, dot, whatever. And if you're observing the sights and you can see the dot or front sight or what sight lift on the last shot on the source target, then your attention and your eyeballs can immediately start to go to the destination target. Make sense? So like there's a lot of people where their focus and attention stays on the source target well after the gun is cycled and the bullets on the target. They're kind of looking for holes to appear in the target before they actually move their attention to the destination target. So getting spicy transitions starts with that vision process. And some people will try to cheat that and say, oh, well, I'm going to be firing the second shot. And as my finger starts to come back, my eyeballs go to the destination target. In that scenario, you can't call the shot because you didn't even look at the sights. Your eyeballs are already on the destination target. So sometimes people are called double tappers in that mode, where if you treat each shot as a separate event, then it's much easier for you to be visually patient to look for that lift of the dot so your eyeballs and the rest of your body can get going to the destination target. So if you don't start with that vision piece, then it doesn't matter what you're doing with your body or your arms or your legs or whatnot, right? So start with your eyeballs. Okay. One cool thing that I like to do with students on the transition stuff is really hammering home picking aiming spots on the targets. They need to be precise aiming spots. If you don't pick an aiming spot, when your eyes flick over to the destination target, wherever they land is where the gun's going to land, right? So that's where you see people like they have sweet pairs of hits on like random parts of the target. That's not a marksmanship problem. That's an aiming spot problem. So if you don't pick aiming spots, like where our eyeballs go is generally where our bullets are going to go. So if you're not really judicious on picking aiming spots on every one of the targets, and when we move our eyeballs quickly, and your eyes are going to, your subconscious remembers where things are at, to whatever refinement you chose to find, right? So if you just like, oh yeah, brown thing over there, it's going to land somewhere on the brown thing, or it landed on this little piece of the brown right in the middle of the A zone. I'm looking for that. I'm being like, that's where I need to find it. And you can test this skill, and we use this all day long as humans. We just don't realize it. But if you were to take and look at two separate things that have different levels of identity within it, like a really good thing, we do this, a lot of people, you're driving your car. Most cars have license plates if they're legal, right? License plates have a mixture of letters and numbers, right? So as you're driving along, there's a car in front of you, and there's a car to the right or the left of you. Both of those cars in front of you have license plates. If you identify and say, I'm going to find a specific letter or number in each of those license plates and just look back and forth, just at a normal pace, find the letters, find the letters, find the letters. Then when you fire your eyeballs aggressively to the other license plate, it's going to land directly on that letter. And it usually only takes 2 or 3 iterations of where is it at, right? Like, where do I find it? Where do I find it? Do that 2 or 3 times. Then anytime your eyeballs flick between those 2 license plates, it's going to land on that specific letter or number you picked. That's the skill I'm talking about. If you pick a specific place on the targets and we're aggressively flicking our eyes to the next target, you want it to land on that aiming spot. And that only happens if you pick an aiming spot to start off with.
And that
Make sense?
picking an aiming spot would actually go through in the walkthrough of the stage. Like
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think people are you're worried about sequence, or you're worried about foot positions or something like that. Like foot positions, like most foot positions, like you can come in a little out, a little bit in. But like if you can pick visually where to put your eyes on each target, that's turns out to be a lot more important. Like if you're 6 inches off on a foot position or whatever like that, and you shoot a C, like that's not good. If you're 6 inches off and you follow it up with a good pair and a good clean transition, because your eyes are visually focused on exactly where you need to be, like you probably won't even notice the position fault, in your mind's eye.
Absolutely. So, a really good, like, I think there's too many people that go out and practice and they put the targets in the normal upright position, right? Even if there's partials on those targets, those are pretty similar looking things. We get pretty lazy around centering the gun in that available brown. One of the things that you can do to really hammer home, I want to get a lot of alphas and pick specific aiming spots, is if you practice with targets on weird angles, like a 45 sideways, upside down. If you change the angles of the targets, you're forced to pick aiming spots, or you're just going to bleed points like crazy. So try that on your next training session. Put the targets on abnormal angles and those kind of things, where you actually have to earn where do I have to aim on this target, because it's an abnormal position or angle.
Yep.
Let's see, from Yuan, what do you do when old age finally hits you and you can't visually process as fast?
You
PCC.
stop shooting iron sights.
Yeah. Let's see.
That's one of the when I my last major match I shot in iron sights was the 2021 Limited Nationals, and that match, like, I was trying to offset the slow focal speed of getting older by just using plus diopter lenses. So at that point, I was at a +1 diopter lens, and that made targets at distance blurry enough that I couldn't pick aiming spots anymore. And when I'm talking like targets 20 yards and beyond, it'd just be a blurry mess out there. If there was like a 6-inch plate at 30 yards, dunzo, dude. Like, it'd blend in with the berm. I'm like blasting at a blob. So that's when I was like, I have to tap out on iron sights, simply because my focal speed slowed down so much. And shooting a dot, you're supposed to have a hard target focus all the time, and you're just kind of peripherally putting the dot over your aiming spot. I think that the cool thing Mason Lane said once is that, like, I'm going to butcher this, but he basically mentioned it is, I'm going to strive to get my eyeballs on the aiming spot, and magically the dot ends up being there. Does that make sense? So it's like, I want to get my eyes there, but then, oh yeah, the dot got there, right?
Whatever you're focused on, that's what you're going to hit. Whatever you're looking at, that's where you're going to point. That's where you're going to shoot. That's what you're going to do. And it's funny because the longer I play the game, the more I realize, like, the shooting part's the easy part. And the eye focus game, the movement game, that's by far what's way more difficult than the actual physical act of shooting. The majority of us, once you get above A class and up, are all probably similar level shooters. It's just the difference between A and M and a GM is consistency and they have the vision game dialed in, and they have the movement game dialed in.
It's visual attention. Like that's the one of the hardest things to do is like you have the different layers of building a stage or performing on a stage. It's just the amount of attention you can put to the details of a stage that's really the separator. And like staying on that the entire time through the entire course of fire and not let anything like bump you out of that mode. Like literally like staring at the smallest spot over and over again. And like we can all do that, you know, and some things that we, especially like stand and deliver, like I always love stand and deliver stages and stuff like that because I could sit there and stand it there and go through that in my mind without having to put a position in my head or whatever. It'd just be like eyes there, eyes there, eyes there, eyes there, eyes there, eyes there. And like it's perfectly fine. The thing is that when you add movement and stuff to it too, is that like there's this constant kind of rush. And like the one thing that your mind is always trying to sacrifice is not the movement, not the speed of the trigger. It's trying to sacrifice the vision. Like that's magically going to make you a better shooter. It's like, this is what we can dump. And it's just like, no, we can't. We can't dump this.
There's no time to aim. Come on, man.
Yeah, I would say like the only thing that in all physical activities that age can be a benefit for is your experience and your ability to do things that younger people are not willing to do, and that's pay attention and you know just pay attention and you know actually do the homework of doing the stage.
Okay, from Jeff, call it recoil anticipation if you want, but why do I flinch? I've been shooting for a few years now, and it's not all the time, but it happens.
Well, one thing that can cause a flinch that I found is my fellow Colorado shooters got me a 500 Smith & Wesson revolver as a going away present, and trying to sight that thing in is
shit.
Yeah.
that there's some flinching happen, and I've been shooting for a bit, you know. So I think that any gun that you feel like is not an extension of you is going to induce. When is it going to happen? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So most of the people that I've seen have bad flinch problems are the same guys that are always turning through different guns, different calibers, different things. Right. So they really don't get to a chance to let a single platform ammunition type of sighting system marinate enough that it becomes an extension of themselves.
Yeah, there's definitely something like when you grab something slightly different, even if you know it's not really not really going to recoil that much. That you know, knowing exactly when a trigger is going to break is pretty important. And the only time you kind of really notice that is when you're sighting in guns. Like you can sit there and you know shoot out a 7-yard target and be like, oh, that's fine and that's great, and do like a build drill or something like that. But if you like bench rest a gun and then try to actually sit there and sight it in, you will see exactly what you are doing in slow motion as you're just trying to pull the trigger. And like you'll see the points in which your body is telling you like now is the time to hold on to it, and then
Shit.
yeah, it's like right when you feel that thing about the slip, that sear about the slip, the hands just starts doing kind of weird little pressure adjustments. And you know we all notice it when we have something bigger like. If you're shooting shotguns out there with the friends, it's fine. But as soon as you put a slug in there and you're trying to aim at like a steel plate, you're just like, I don't particularly want to do this. Bam, ping, and then you're like, okay, all right, I didn't flinch on that one. But if you're thinking about the flinching, it's definitely part of the process that you're going to push it down. Consistency.
Tom, I think you have a really good point there. Is that in one of the elements I talk about in my practical shooting, like competition classes, is when we go to shooting groups, I have them do the traditional slow surprise break style group shooting. And then when we're done with that, I have them row through the trigger action. And I only give them 0.3 of a second to break the shot. So I put the timer on a 0.3 par time, and it's literally like beep, beep. And they got to get the shot done before that second beep. And that takes out the opportunity to do all this extra bullshit that happens. They just don't, the flinchers and the anticipators don't have time to do it because their fingers going fast enough that they don't have time to do all this other crap. Right. So if you're firing the shots at an aggressive enough pace, you're not going to have enough. You're not going to have time to flinch against it. That I've seen.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we see with people firing slower that are newer. That you'll see like the harder they aim, the more they're gonna miss because of it. And then like they speed up, or like I remember taking a class with Langdon, and then Langdon would sit there and like have him, and he'd have him on the target, and he'd have the slack out of the trigger, and he'd have the timer, and they'd have to fire the shot as soon as he press the beep, and it'd be like 2/10 or 2500s for the reaction time or something like that. And you would see the person who was struggling the most in the class with like a double action pistol or something like that make shots on like a bullseye, an 8-inch bullseye or something, and then all of a sudden they're on a 2-inch target, and like, are they dead center their 2-inch target? No, but their group size is significantly shrunken, just because of their reaction time of having to go and fire beep boom, and you'd see the group starting to shrink back up. But like all of us will shooting a group press a shot that's going to go sideways. Watch every single gun review where they're shooting a group and they're like, and that one was a flyer, and then I felt that one. It's because that's when they show. The more you pay attention, the more timing's disrupted.
I think it's an ammunition manufacturer conspiracy to make us shoot more ammunition. The flyers. I think that's what it is.
I've been watching.
No, it's just called Tommy's Reloading.
I have never watched. I have never been interested in guys shooting, single-handed 15-yard bullseye shooting. But there's something from that class of people, riffraff, whatever you want to call them, but you can learn from anybody. But like what you see with them and like their reloading and like their pistol technique, and especially with these guys are doing something, which is like iron sights, blacked out iron sights, one-handed at 50 yards, trying to shoot bullseye. There's something there that like we could learn about recoil anticipation and moving, and then also in the reloading and manufacturing and how the firearms work, because it's like crazy. Like we don't care about like, oh, I hand chambered this round versus this round was actually cycled into the chamber and the effects that has on the bullet. We don't need that much stuff or that much information, but a lot of the ideas that they have on about pressing triggers and consistently in sights, like that stuff is just golden stuff. And it's kind of the same stuff that was taught to a lot of like the Delta Force shooters. Like back in the day, like their thing was like total accountability for the rounds, and like if you didn't shoot, B8s at 25 and 50 yards, at this level you could be replaced. Like there's a lot of good stuff in there that we've kind of let by the wayside in a pursuit of looking good on Instagram. So just go.
That's all that matters in life, Tom.
Yeah, it does. And then
titties.
Then the scores. All the people who are doing well post the scores with the video. It was not a good match if they just post the video. That's how it goes. Because the good guys, they cut it in. They cut it in at the bottom. But other than that, they don't.
Last question. Locally, people often talk about building stages to prepare them for nationals or major matches. What does that actually look like? What is the difference between a nationals or a major match type stage and a local stage?
The national match stage are much more boring and have arrays of 6 targets from every view. All right, sorry, 6 shots from every view.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually stopped. I went to the nationals this in 2025, and that my last nationals before that was 2021, and I had that gap because I was so tired of the shooting and movement challenges at the nationals being a completely different test than what we see in club matches and state matches and area matches. That's like, dude, I spend all year practicing for a math test, right? And then you get to the math test and, oh, surprise, it's an English test, right? Like, I think that turning, like, as a match director, you have to make a product that people want to consume, right? It needs to be entertaining. It needs to be pushing people's skill, but it can't be a brutal grind, right? You shouldn't have shooters walking up on the stages and being like, I want to survive this stage. That's not fun for a lot of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
There can be one or two brutal aiming fiestas and a major match, but the rest of it should be pretty normal stuff, right? And I'm also a big proponent of the match directors need to really know their customer base, right? You could go to the nationals and they have a bunch of brutal partials at distance. If you brought that stuff back to your local club match and everybody's racking up double digit mics, are you really providing a product that people want to buy locally? The answer is no, right? So for the people that and this would happen a lot in Colorado, I'm still to see if it happens in Idaho here, but we would have competitors, good competitors, go to national level matches and get owned on shooting challenges that they don't practice, they don't see in local matches, and then they would come back and be like, "Oh, we're going to add all this super difficult stuff to the local club matches," and I'd be like, "No, dude, you need to go practice that stuff on your own because guess what? The current product that we have for our customer base, it is tuned to the skill set that provides them enjoyment, yet also pushes their bounds a little bit, but doesn't make it super painful." But I'm yet to see anybody drive away from any match with double digit mics and being like, "That was awesome. I want to go do that again." Right? So I just think it's a little weird where people feel like, and maybe it's from the people that legitimately don't practice. And if their practice is attending matches, then guess what? You're going to suck at majors, bud. Like if you're not practicing on your own, you need to be practicing not just what you see locally, but what you see on the national stage, right? If you want to go brutalize yourself with partials at distance or like crazy moving targets and that kind of stuff, like go buy a swinger. They're not that expensive, right? Go own your own destiny and performance, and you're going to be a lot better off in these major matches. But expecting the club matches to somehow magically prepare you for major matches, I think that's the wrong idea.
How do you communicate that to people who say that? And because it's Charlie, you and I have been in this a long time. I mean, and this argument, it comes up like all the time. You always hear the upcoming hot shots. They always say the same thing, and they're not intrinsically wrong in wanting to have like harder stages and things that would test them, but at the same time there is a disconnect. I think there's that disconnect that you speak of, which is they too once used to be the new guy,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to balance what the needs of the customer base with the demands of the high profile shooters.
I balanced it by for the cream of the crop in the local scene. I'd be like, guys, let's go practice. Let's go set up the craziness in a practice and just brutalize each other in these shooting challenges, right? And set the tone for that in our own practice sessions. And then we can sneak a target or two here or there of that kind of stuff into the club matches, but it cannot be a complete aiming fiesta brutalizing situation. Because
Yeah.
if you do that, like it is mega demoralizing for a new shooter to go to a local club match and get annihilated. They can't hit anything. They can't achieve the requirements of the stage. Like there's a Wildcat match that happens here in Idaho, and they had one of those spinners, right? And the spinner was placed at a distance. It was like 18, 19 yards.
Oh,
And
jeez.
like there was like half of my squad couldn't turn it over. And that was after mag, 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 and mag and mag. I'm out of bullets. Like that was like a $30 spinner and ammo. Was that fun for somebody? And of course, since it's an outlaw match, if you don't turn it over, it's a 30-second time penalty. So it's like a mega donkey punch.
Yeah, it's like,
right?
oh, okay, good. I'll go pretend I just shot the 13th stage of the match. I'll go walk over there for 30 seconds and pretend I did that. The one thing too is like the level of difficulty cannot be such in the match that like it demoralizes people. But the other part, like we used to see this all the time, which was like it's going to slow the fast guys down. It's like, correct, the fast guys are going to have to press the brakes, and then everybody else is going to have to sit at a complete standstill and then just get completely just messed up. Like that was the steel at distance, like moving steel at distance. It's like if it's a paper target, like fire a couple at it, and then if you come back, we can go back there, and then you can be demoralized by misses.
Yeah, Steve Terry always tried to teach me. He says, if you build a stage to slow down the G's, you'll destroy the C's.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, that's our thoughts and opinions, and those thoughts are solely of Charlie Perez. Anything said on this podcast were the thoughts and opinions and responsibility of Charlie Perez. Also, you can send him money. He'll give you a book. Path to Focused Effort. Was it Panda?
Unlike you, Tommy, I actually have like one of the OG books, like the pre-production models.
Mine's in color. I don't care. Like mine's the color copy.
Okay, yeah, you got that going for you.
It's good. Look at that.
I can't read.
Look at that. Charlie's got his Under Armour shirt on. You know, she like. It's just, you know what, and the other part about it, like, it's a great book, but I just like seeing old like iron sight guns demoed at it, and I was like, you know what, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. It's just nice. A good set of adjustable irons.
I got some Masad Ayub books. You want those?
Oh yeah. I think
be
I
careful. Be careful. We're turning into PARAcast After Dark already.
Oh, it's gonna be. I would love some in the gravest extreme and
In the gravest extreme.
I have one of his concealed carry books from like 2007, and it is a time machine, ladies and gentlemen. It is a time machine. The day that the Glock 27 and the leather milt Sparks ruled the day, you don't get those days back. You don't get them back. Should we get them back? It's probably for the better that we don't. But, like, you don't get those days back. Anyways, Big Panda Performance. That's correct, right, Charlie? That is your website?
Yes, sir.
You can order that, set up classes, look what Charlie's up to. Thanks for him coming on. For Robert Wyatt and Jared Stepp, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and souls as we depart into the open waters of the Sea of Life on a little tugboat we like to call the PARAcast.
Good night, everybody.
Doot doot.